hard questions for Sam.
All right, Boston Con fans. Welcome to the Mighty Marvel panel. My name's Clay. I represent Boston and do a comic book podcast, but you don't care about that. You care about Marvel now. Let me do some introductions. Down the end there, Brandon Peterson.
Hello.
Mike Choi. Mr. Mark Bagley. Perhaps we'll have another guest soon. So, gentlemen, thanks for coming here today. Everybody's excited about Marvel now. And what is the most exciting thing to you all about Marvel Now books?
Paychecks. Honest answer right off the bat.
Man, you get the wrong crowd here. I mean, you have like, Joe Quesada sitting here or something.
Yeah, I actually haven't worked at Marvel for a year, so I'm looking forward to reading it.
Seriously?
Fair enough.
Video games.
Yeah, sorry.
Sucker.
I worked there for 6 years.
Yeah.
I loved every minute of it. Right? They did this, right?
Yeah.
I loved every minute of working at Marvel.
Yeah,
I loved every minute working at DC.
Whoa!
Really?
It's called sarcasm, people. Understand it. All right.
Well,
I don't know anything about Marvel now. I mean, I worked on my book. I guess my Fantastic Four run is
Marvel Now.
Marvel Now, except we're off in time traveling and playing nonsense
Well,
games.
everything's time travel. I
Well.
just finished Age of Ultron. That's time travel.
It's true. You really effed everything up.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that's going to be happening. So
And the artwork was bad too.
it was awful. Thank you very much.
But,
Well, I tried to draw the issue with my left hand for once. So. No, right. But yeah, I'm actually going to have a chance to work on an official Marvel Now book coming up in the fall. I'm going to be doing some issues of All New X-Men, because even though Stewart's very fast, Marvel's shipping more than 12 issues a year. They're shipping like 18 issues a year. So I'm being Bendis. After we worked on Age of Ultron, he asked me if I could do it. And right now I'm just waiting for, kind of the go for script. It's been a few. He's really, Bendis is a busy guy at Marvel, in case you ever noticed how much work he's doing. So that's all I'm pretty much waiting for, getting ready to go on that. So it's going to be exciting. I really love that book. It's with the kids, from they get to come to the future or the present as it, is for us, and see how they all turned out. And of course, they all freak out because they're all dark and disturbed. And Angel had his wings cut off, and Cyclops killed Professor X. He's like, I did what? Like that type of stuff. So I really like the spirit of that book because it's a really neat contrast between kind of the grim, brooding, current Marvel universe and the idealistic, happy, looking with some hope 60s kind of Marvel universe. So, but one of the things with the time stuff is Age of Ultron, which I worked on. From what I understand that's going to be a big deal. Like Marvel's timeline is kind of disintegrating a little bit and falling apart.
basically broke the timeline. So in my book,
My fault.
my next gig is related to all this is I guess they've announced it. It's called, first it was Nullification, then it was something else, and Ultification or something, and now it's Cataclysm. And basically they've broken the barriers between the two universes, and Galactus shows up in the Ultimate Universe, the Galactus, our Galactus.
Not the Galactus eye, with the big bug Galactus.
Yeah, not the bug Galactus,
Yeah.
the Cloud Galactus from the
Yeah.
movie. That was awful. And I get to draw that, which is so cool because Galactus is such a pain in the ass to draw, but he's so cool looking,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's related to the whole breaking of the timeline. That sort
Yeah.
of thing. I get to draw Miles Morales.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna make him white just to piss him. That'd be hilarious. But
Everyone's like, what?
hey, we really broke everything. So. But that all's coming up. There's lots of interesting stuff coming on, and it's all the real characters, and it's not like redesigned 52 characters. Never mind. So
So what do you think, Mike?
I'm just spoilers. Thanks, man. Thanks, guys.
what spoilers?
Angel.
Yeah. I'm sorry you haven't caught up from 15 years ago.
I'm sorry. They brought Cable back, right? Yeah. Insane.
I don't know.
There's David May.
And
Hi, David Mack.
There he is.
Oh.
Wow. Had to finish that last page, didn't you? We were gonna mock. Who else is gonna help mock?
He is good looking. No, I don't.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Mack.
Hey, thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, David Mock.
Yeah, did I miss the good stuff?
No, trust me.
I was just about to ask about all these Brian Michael Bendis books you guys have been working on, such as Daredevil End of Days.
Yeah, I brought these books just in case somebody knew what I did for Marvel. So this is my newest project that I did at Marvel called Daredevil End of Days. And then I also do Kabuki at Marvel. So this was Kabuki the Alchemy, the most recent Kabuki volume. So just as a visual aid, just in case.
Another shameless plug from David Mack.
And that's a creator-owned book, correct?
Yeah, Kabuki is a creator-owned book. Yeah, we formed Kabuki and Powers were at Image before, and then in 2004 we formed a creator-owned imprint at Marvel Comics called Icon to publish Kabuki and Powers, and now there's other books there as well.
Such as Brilliant.
Yeah, and that's going really great. Brian's so busy, and I'm so busy. It's like, I've been waiting for the second half of issue 5 for about a year and a half. And
Are you serious?
oh, seriously.
Brilliant's amazing. Like, that's
Seriously.
really cool.
It's brilliant.
It is really cool. I did some covers for it too.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's like a really cool project.
It is a cool project, but we've just been hammered, and between Brian, having babies and adopting babies every time you turn around, and, it's,
He just had
he
his
doesn't
fourth
actually
child.
have, his
The
wife
next
has.
generation of assistant writers. For
Yeah, exactly.
He's
But,
grooming his assistants.
that's right. That's right. But yeah, Brilliant is sort of on a hiatus right now. I want to finish it soon though. And but that has nothing to do with Marvel Age though, or Marvel Now.
Marvel,
Now.
Marvel
Now.
Age, Marvel.
Now.
Well, obviously all your creators and work for other companies, and it's not all about Marvel, for sure. I want to ask like a general, broad question. When you get into art, did you expect to be drawing comics, or did you want to do art for, illustrations for money, things like that weren't necessarily based in comics?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I actually have a degree from the University of Wisconsin in illustration. And when I was going through school, I wanted to do comics, but I got into comics kind of through being into fantasy and science fiction. I really didn't get into comic books until I was like in high school. Because I was a farm kid out in the middle of Wisconsin. I didn't have access to, comic books every month. But I did have access to my school's library, so I could pull, Asimov and other, things like that. So I wanted to be like Frank Frazetta. I wanted to, paint paperback covers and stuff like that. And then when I was going to school, I met a guy who was actually an inker working at that time for smaller companies, but he had worked for DC. He'd inked Carmine Infantino on the Flash. That's how old school he was. And he kind of showed me the ropes, and I said, wow, I could actually do this for a living too. And by trying and working at it, by the time I graduated, my first regular job was X-Men, just because I'd done enough little jobs for other companies like DC and other publishers. So it wasn't something that I set out to do, but it definitely turned into something that I like to do. But yeah, I didn't know. In middle Wisconsin, I could have graduated my illustration degree and been tractor ads for the the next 20 years. So
They've been really good tracker ads.
really dynamic tractor ads.
Very dynamic.
Tractors popping right off the page.
First digital
Tractor
ad in the
ads.
business.
Real shiny tractors.
With lens flares.
And tendrils. Lots of tendrils.
And action lines. Don't forget. Have flashlights.
And Kirby crap.
You know it.
I actually I didn't go to school for art.
Obviously.
Yeah, I haven't. I have an IT degree from the University of Texas. I actually, yeah, yes, from Texas. I fell in love with comics like as a junior in college. It was comic books. I worked at IBM for 3 years. And I realized I liked the job, but I didn't love it. It wasn't something I loved to do. But I was in love with comics, so I actually got in touch with Renee at Top Count and said, hey, I'll do anything for you guys. I have a marketing minor. I know that your marketing guy is leaving, so maybe I could have an internship there. So it really was comics first. And I just quit my job on Valentine's Day 2003, and I drove to LA and started an internship there. I was lucky because they were one of the very few companies that had an in-house studio with Mark Silvestri and a bunch of guys. And just because I needed something to do, they had a desk open. So I think everyone who likes comic books, they aspire in some shape or form to either write or draw comics, and I was more towards the art, especially being in the studio. So all I did was draw for a year and a half. So that was 2003. So at the end of 2004, after doing some backgrounds and stuff, I got Witchblade, and it's been that ever since. And even now, though, even though I'm a full-time illustrator and stuff, I still maintain that I love comic books way more. Well, not way more, but I love comic books more than I love art or drawing. So I'm lucky.
What about marketing? Do you still
yeah, occasionally I do marketing. And you know what? I've been doing video game stuff for a little bit, and everyone works in one office, and I'll look at the engineering guys, and I'll be like, hey, object-oriented programming. I could do that.
Like, you understand our language.
When they say Boolean, I know exactly what they mean. So,
What's programming?
Programming is,
No,
Boolean is true or false.
That's a really cool story.
Stupid.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Marketing story. So cool.
My turn?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm being twice as old as anybody else up here. I saw my first comic coming back from Hawaii. I'm an Army brat, which a lot of guys in the business are, so we have no roots. And we were driving through Southwest Texas someplace, no air conditioning in the car in the summertime. We pulled in, my dad bought us warm Dr. Peppers and comic books. I'd never seen one, and I was like 9. And it was the Superboy comic where he's fighting the Kryptonian dragon. They made a model out of it years and years ago. And I just sort of fell in love with it. And I got 5 brothers, and they're all like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? My dad was like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? I fell in love with it, and I just tried to get in for years and years and years. Joined the Army so I could afford art school, which I didn't graduate from because I ran out of money and interest. And did construction for about 3 years and put 93 stitches in my thigh from a skill saw, decided that wasn't my trade. And got a job at Lockheed doing technical illustration, and I was working there, and I was 27. I was like, I've tried really hard and really long, and I'm not going to be like the 30-year-old. If there's any 30-year-old guys out there, this offends, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be some 30-year-old guy walking around a convention with a 5-year-old portfolio going, look at my stuff. If it wasn't going to happen, it wasn't going to happen. I had a wife and a kid and a house and a decent job. And Marvel did the trial book, and it was $19, and I thought it was a gimmick to take money from the kids because Shooter was running the company, and it had a really bad rep at the time. And it was a gimmick to take money from the kids. But the owner of the bookstore I go to is a friend of mine, and he gave me the book. He said, look, if you don't do this, you'll hate yourself. There's a point to this story. He gave it to me, and I did it, and I won first place out of like 19,000 people. Eric Larson swears he came in second. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. And 19,000 people, and 18,750 were 12-year-olds because it was a gimmick. But it got me a trip to New York and got my first job. The moral of that story is you get your shot, you take it, and you be ready for it. And I started doing comics in the evenings while I was working at Lockheed, and about a year and a half later, Lockheed was laying off, and I was getting enough work, and I was tired of living on 4 hours of sleep a night, so I've been doing comics now for 28 years or so.
You get 5 hours of sleep now.
Now I get 6 actually. I need my rest, my beauty sleep. But I fell in love with comics. I just read them and read them and read them. And my twin brother just like, what the hell? I got a twin brother. He's never been married. I've been married 30 years. He doesn't draw. He barely reads. So he reads now more because he can't play golf in the wintertime. I hate golf. And, so it's just different. So that's me.
If I had a twin brother, I'd have him do all the conventions conventions.
We look nothing alike. You and I look as much like brothers as we do, yeah. You know, so it's just weird. But it's a, you know, I get up every day, having put the skill saw through my thigh, and having been in the Army, and having done jobs that, you know, I know what it's like to really actually have a job and work for a living, and get up thinking, I got a wife and a kid, I don't like what I do, but I'm gonna be doing it. And this, when I won that contest, man, it's like, I cried like a bitch. No, I didn't, but I was very, very happy. And I never take it for granted, never, ever. It's one of the reasons why I think I get so much work done is, I'm not the most talented guy even up here, but I'll outwork anybody in the room, so. There!
I grew up loving to just make all kinds of stuff, to write things, to draw things, make things three-dimensionally, and I didn't really think so much about like a certain job for that until when you're in high school, you start to feel the expectations of the adult world, that you start to have to maybe choose something that you can at least major in college. So, and you would get the sense that your teachers are sort of, you know, they see you drawing and making things, but they don't know that you can really do that in real life. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah. No.
No, okay. Is this better? Is the mic on?
Yeah.
Is it better? Close? Okay. So I had a teacher in my high school who was really helpful in that. I mean, I knew I was going to be responsible for putting myself through college. And so at the time, I planned to join the military. In fact, I went down and I enlisted in the military. And when I was 16, but I had braces on. And at that time, they didn't let you take basic training when you had braces on. So they said, wait till your braces are off and come back. And I was going to go to the military to pay for my college education. Because I knew my parents weren't going to be able to cover it. So, and then my high school art teacher said that she felt like I had some potential, and that she was putting together a portfolio for me. And so she said, I've chose 10 pieces that I'm going to send. She said, here's 9 pieces. Each of these pieces shows something that I think is the best thing you do in these different disciplines. Here's something in oil painting, here's something in acrylic, here's photography, here's sculpture. She chose all these different mediums, and she says, these are what I think are your best, and we'll show one of each of these. And for your 10th and final piece, just do whatever you want. I'll leave that one to you. And so I thought, I've always loved comics and stories and sequential art and bookmaking, so I just, for the first time, just went and used that as an opportunity to make my first comic book when I was in high school. And once I started doing it, I just felt like, wow, here's a medium that I don't have to choose one thing to the exclusion of anything else. Inside this medium, I can integrate every other medium or any kind of interest that I want inside the page of the story. And it was so fun not to just do one image or one painting, but to wake up every day doing like the next image that plays off the last image, and just really building a context for the story that you're doing. And I just really fell in love with the art form. And so I made like this little horrible 55-page crime comic that I made.
55?
It was I had no idea what pagination sequence was or anything. I was just doing one page at a time. I didn't even like work out ahead of time. Just one page, next page, next page. Yeah. And so I turned in this little 55-page story, and she really liked it, put it together, and then she sent it off with the rest of the other 9 pieces, and I ended up getting a scholarship for that thing. So I was able to go to college based on that. And then so when I started college, I knew what I was going to do. I knew I was going to do comics no matter what. I fell in love with the process and the art form. But the college I went to, it didn't, maybe it does now, but at the time it didn't offer any classes or any majors or anything on comic book making. So I thought, well, they offer graphic design. So I got my BFA in graphic design. I thought I would take that as my major. And I got a minor in literature. So I felt like graphic design is taught as a synthesis of type and image, and comics are that. So maybe it'll give me a good sensitivity to how type and imagery integrate, and I'll try to learn that for my, to apply to my actual comic work. So everybody else in these design classes they're going to do all these corporate design things, but I knew I wasn't going to do that. I was just trying to learn everything I could from the class and glean it and then put it into my actual work. And then I started working professionally my freshman year doing comics at the same time, like for horrible page rates. Like I was getting paid $10 a page, and it took me about 12 hours a page. So I was probably making like 70 cents an hour, but I was just happy that it was like something getting published, and I would use that as an opportunity to go to a convention and show that work to other places and get more work from that. And then it was while I was in college that I put together my first, this isn't the first volume, but my story Kabuki, the very first volume of it, I turned in for my senior thesis in literature when I was in college. So I was working on the whole book, like while I was in classes, listening to the lectures, and I was drawing it, inking it, and everything. I would try to look at every class as not just, this is a credit I have to do, but what can I glean from this class that's actually useful for my real life, work, but put it in comics, not to whatever they were teaching it for. So it was almost like I was trying to invent my own curriculum by using whatever they were teaching in the class, but applying it to the comic book work I was doing. And that first Kabuki volume, I was getting it published all through college. I turned it in. I would use it for any class I could. I would turn it in for bookmaking class, typography class, drawing classes. I would talk to the teachers and say, here's what I'm doing. Is there a way I can make this applicable to your class? So I think what you learn most in college is like time management and really realizing that there's a system of the world and how to navigate that system and talk to people and deal with them and communicate like what you need to get done in terms of what you want to see out of the process, but also how to fulfill the requirements of other people. And so I did that first Kabuki volume, and I just kept doing it. And I showed Joe Quesada that first Kabuki volume at a convention in '95. And so I was already doing Kabuki and focused on it. And then he actually, this was before he was at Marvel, he was doing, I think Ash at Event Comics at the time. And he called me like a week later and said, hey, I read this Kabuki story you gave me, and I really like it, and I really like your writing, and I'd love to work with you as a writer someday. And then cut to a few years later, I get a call out of the blue. I was now at Image Comics doing Kabuki at Image, and I get a call out of the blue from Joe saying, I'm going to take over a few books at Marvel. Would you like to write and draw like your own book there? And I said, wow, what an amazing call to get. But I just started this brand new series at Image Comics, this new Kabuki story, and I have to write and paint it. And so I can't write and paint two books. So he said, okay, perfect. I'm doing Daredevil. Kevin Smith is writing it. When Kevin Smith is finished writing it, then you take over Daredevil as the writer with Joe Quesada doing the art. And I said, perfect. I can totally do that. So that was my introduction to Marvel. Was actually my first work was as a writer, writing for Marvel with Joe Quesada doing the art. And I eventually started doing covers and started doing more art as well. So that's my story.
Thank you.
Wait, did you ever get your braces on?
No, I use Invisalign now.
I have another question for the panel, and then we can open it up for some questions if you guys don't mind. And that's if editorial or if the writer or if the story calls for a character redesign. Excuse me. Is that exciting to you guys? And I mean, from Ultimate to Daredevil to X-23 to Age of Ultron, I mean, these are all like might be our old heroes, but new costumes, and you guys have all contributed to the Marvel universe.
It can be fun, yet it can also be very frustrating, depending on how much it's going to be utilized and how much editorial is involved. I've done it before where, you'll just get a story and there's say, hey, there's this character, design him. And that's sometimes, like literally they don't have any idea, they just want you to do something out of the blue, and it's just really if the writer is okay with it or the editor's okay with it, then it goes. But you can also have a situation where the writer has to have approval, the editor has to have approval, editorial board has to have approval, merchandising has to have approval.
The advertising.
Advertising has to have approval, and that can just be really frustrating because you can get 4 approvals and then 1 denial, and you have to start from the scratch and do it. And then when you make that change that last person wanted, now the second to the last person doesn't like it. And you'll go through this process, and the thing is, I don't know about you guys, but I get paid pretty much for completed pieces of work, It's not the amount of time I take. So if I take 2 hours on a piece, I get paid the same if I took 20 hours on a piece. And so sometimes in those things, if they'll give you a design fee, it still doesn't compensate if you end up going roundabout. Just, you know, you can spend weeks, and then suddenly you'll find yourself behind the 8 ball, having to draw an assignment because the character didn't get approved until 2 weeks into the process. So you had these kind of blank areas where that character is supposed to be on the pages, you know, hoping that, I hope they don't make him have a cape, because I have to erase something out then and put a cape in there or something like that. But there's things with the alternate universes, like Age of Ultron. That was a very odd situation because I really didn't know, like I got a script and there was this, there's these alternate versions of all these characters, and he had some suggestions, like he's like, I want Captain America to, you know, kind of be like Nick Fury. He's got one of his eyes scratched out, but mostly Captain America. And Wolverine just put him in his old orange and brown costume and stuff like that. But then the rest of this, he said, just make them look like they've been through, hell. And I was going, okay. So one of the characters was Thing, and I went, you know, what'd be cool with Thing is put big craters where he'd been like hit so hard that he's like the moon. He's just got little impact craters put on him. And then there was one that was it was Wasp, but she has Captain Marvel's powers. And I looked at the costume, her old Yellow Jacket costume. I said, where's that big star design on the chest? I wonder if I combine it. And it just worked beautifully. And some of them were just cheesy. Like he said, Cyclops looks like Cable. And I'm like, okay. So I put big pads all over Cyclops and stuff like that. You know, but there's a lot of ones that were actually pretty fun that way. Like, you know, and the thing is, I didn't really know that was going to be 2 or 3 issues with those characters. My impression was that they might jump to another universe and these particular characters wouldn't be utilized after that. But that wasn't the case. So, you know, it's sometimes very fly by the seat of the pants thing, which can be very fun and dynamic. And sometimes it's the slow, plodding, you know, well, the toy people have to sign off to see if this can be, you know, done right and stuff. And you're just like, oh, I just want to get drawing because I just watch my time dwindling. And I don't know about you guys, but Marvel is, you know, you'll say, like, please give me this amount of time because this is how much time I need to do a good job. And you rarely get that time. I'm just being honest. It's usually things are much more hurried. And there's nothing more aware when you're okay, I have 5 weeks to do this issue. I can easily do it in 5 weeks. And you're waiting for something. Now I have 4 weeks to do this issue. You're like, okay, I obviously have done issues in 4 weeks, it's okay. Then you have 3 weeks to do the issue. And you start going, okay, if I skip no breakfasts, I'll be able to get it done. And then 2 weeks to do the issue, and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna call in some friends and maybe they can help do some background stuff. And yeah, that's the only problem. So when you're waiting, the clock doesn't stop, it just keeps going. So in those situations, it's real frustrating. But you know, that's what they expect, and that's publishing. You know, monthly publishing doesn't
Waits for no man.
Waits for no man, and especially not for me. So
Brandon.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very fun if there's not that kind of restriction. If it's more like just the editor and the writer going, whatever, let's work on something, then it's really fun. You can kind of just play around and use your ideas, get through. And that's one of the great things about working on comics in general is, I know people that work in animation, I know people that work in special effects, I know people that work in video games, I know people that work in, you know, movie production. And you hear that, you hear some of the things they do. Sometimes they make a lot of money, and sometimes they go to exotic locations and they get to work with interesting people. Yeah, exotic Pasadena, California, the Garden State.
It's nothing, I'm sorry. It's like Lowell.
Yeah.
Sorry, my
I
wife
was
is
born in Lowell.
my wife is from Lowell. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Lowell. Mickey Ward is from there.
Mickey Ward.
Some guy named something Kerouac. I don't know. It sounds weird. I believe it's a made-up name.
Poor Lowell.
I'm sorry, Lowell is awesome.
So,
Market Basket is there.
a real murder?
Also, Dunkin' Donuts. We don't have that in California.
You don't have
There's
that?
12,000 Dunkin' Donuts everywhere.
See, my
Not in
girlfriend.
California. We got Krispy Kreme.
Oh, so, but Lowell aside, no, it's all right. The interesting thing is it's all those jobs. There's huge amounts of people involved from the start to the end of a product. So, a lot of times people don't feel like their contribution is really what makes it directly to what people see. You know, and when you watch a movie like Avengers, you stay for the end credits and watch the 1,000 people roll by, you know, the different special effects houses and stuff. But if you do a comic book, it's really, you could count probably on your hand the amount of people involved in the creation of it. There's a writer, there's a artist, and sometimes there's a penciler and inker, letter colorist editor. I mean, that's really it when it comes right down to it. And those are the people that have a say in how it's going to look. And for the most part, when you do a page or you do a drawing, it's like if you don't hear anything back, they loved it, and you move on to the next thing. And that's 99% of the time. You might have every once in a while somebody goes, oh wait, we changed our idea on this character, or hold off, this doesn't make sense, or something like that. But for the most part, it's pretty purely what you put down on the paper.
Yeah, to be honest, I've never had the experience you've had with taking that much time.
Oh.
I've never, I mean,
Okay,
occasionally you get, okay, can you tweak something here or there? I've never had that much trouble, like with a character design.
Well, I had that in the very early 90s when I was working on the X-Men books, because they were thinking,
Well,
make this a toy.
The X-Men is awesome.
crossover.
It's always been a nightmare to work
Yeah.
with.
You never worked on a crossover? Like a crossover like that, where
I've
you
worked,
depended so much on other people's schedules.
yeah, I've done that, but generally, if a character's being designed, like when I was doing, crossover, Maximum Carnage, Maximum Clonage, yeah, those guys, basically, they would generally just, whoever's doing this part where the new character would show up, they would do the design, just give you the design to work on,
Yeah.
which is fine, And every now and then, like, this is like way old, but, for like Kane and those guys, they go, okay, everybody send in designs, and we pick and choose. Tom Lyle actually ended up designing the Hoodie Scarlet Spider thing, which I've always loathed. It's...
What do you really think about it?
Yeah, I love Tom. I just loathe it in costume design. I've designed a few I loathe myself, but it's generally pretty easy. I mean, that sort of thing. The frustrating thing is when you work really hard doing a design, you really like one,
Yeah.
and it's there for one issue.
Yeah.
The Ultimate Spider-Man, that I had to design a costume for Kitty Pryde. She wanted to hang out with Spider-Man and not have her identity blown somehow. So I designed this kind of spidery costume for her, and I really worked my ass off on this design. And she was in it for like 4 pages. I was like, damn, I even did color. I never do
Or
color.
the next
guys.
thing is, like, you design this one that really takes advantage of your skills, and then the next artist goes, oh, that's too hard. I'm just going to draw it
Oh,
the
yeah.
way that I want. Yeah.
I'm sorry, man.
Is that you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm lazy. I don't know, like, yeah, it's. By the way, man, like hearing you talk, like, you kind of summed up like what's really great and what's really not so great about working in comics,
Yeah.
especially a publisher like Marvel. Yeah, but so it's kind of impressive. I mean, like, I don't
It
work
does beat the
in.
hell out of advertising.
Well, I do video games now, and it's definitely the only thing that I like is the stability. I guess I'm salaried,
Yeah.
so that's really cool. But I definitely miss comic books. I mean, the last major project I worked on was Second Coming.
Yeah.
Just like you, it's like the issue that Nightcrawler died. He's coming back, apparently. I'm sorry. No. I'm just kidding. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I spent
That's
like
his job. Kill somebody
Yeah,
to bring
I
him
know.
back. And they still freaking dead. I swear.
3 months I worked on that.
Screw
issue.
John Byrne.
3 months, and then the next issue I had only 3 weeks
Yeah.
because of the same thing. Like you keep waiting for a script, and like this part's not done yet, and it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have any experience designing costumes and stuff.
That
which
was
is-
something from the 90s, I just remember, because that was with the Toy Biz was now, co-part. They were looking at a toy line, so I had to go past a lot of different eyes.
Well, like what's weird is that like the major thing that I think I designed was one costume of X-23 that I put on a variant cover that Top Cow was doing with Marvel. I just designed it on a whim because they didn't really need it to be like in any kind of continuity. And I put like the Punisher logo on her boots and stuff because I thought it was being funny. But it turns out that was the costume that was used on several toys and also in the Marvel Capcom video game. So that was kind of cool, but at the same time it's like, wow, I wish I didn't put that Punisher logo on the boot.
You never know where it's going
You
to
never,
go.
yeah, you never know because as soon as you design it, it's rightfully their property and they get to do whatever they want, and I just think of it as a compliment, and I haven't gotten paid for it. That's great.
Does anybody out there have any questions? Looks like there's a bunch. You sir in the red.
Yeah. Do you think that with speaking of alternate universes, and fans have for a long time said, oh, well, maybe someday they'll combine the Marvel and Ultimate universes. Could that even be done without breaking what people like about either universe?
I'm going to assume that's directed at me because you were looking at me. So he asked if breaking the if we had to break the universes, to actually combine the Ultimate Universe with the 616 universe. Having said that, I don't know if they're actually combining them or if they're just messing with. I don't know how this thing's finally going to wash out totally. But no, they don't have to break in. I mean, you know, these guys are really creative writers, a lot of them, and I'm sure there's 14,000 different ways they could do it. You know, between Mephisto has a way to jump between universes that nobody else has figured out, that sort of thing. So this is just a really kind of climactic, Armageddon type thing that they want to do. So, that's how that's working.
You back there? Yes.
Is there any new characters we can expect to see in the second Avengers movie?
We're in the
All of
wrong
them.
business for that.
All of
The
them.
only thing I've heard,
Wolverine.
Wonder Woman and Batman.
Spider-Man's going to show it too.
Hey, by the way, can I address something that you relates to the question? Is that Marvel's not going to do anything. Everything that Marvel does is about pleasing the fans. Like telling stories, not just pleasing the fans, but telling really good stories that they're not going to do anything to piss anybody off. I mean, they know that people value both universes.
Brian always says something.
Have you ever read a comic book?
I like to try to
Sometimes
stay
they do
like,
things
idealistic
just to
and-
piss the fans off. What do you think the Clone Saga was all about? For crying out loud. Because that's as cool as making them very happy. Because no matter what pisses them off, it's temporary. You know?
Yeah, actually, the thing reminds me of something Brian said when I was on Age of Ultron. He goes, I piss them off, then I make them love me, and then I piss them off again. And that's what my goal always
Hey,
is.
in my way.
My wife and I.
I love Lowell. That's awesome. My love Lowell, yeah.
Power Girl Prime right here.
So I want to just say I love all of your work, and I'm really curious, since you've talked a lot about alternate realities and designing characters for that, do you have a particular favorite design in your alternate realities, or like End of Days, Future Daredevil, things like that?
We had a blast with Daredevil End of Days because it gave us an opportunity to. Yeah, you can clap if you want.
That's my motto. You can clap if you want to.
It's actually #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list of graphic books right now. Wow. The editor told us that at San Diego, and lo and behold, Brian sent me the link to it, and
His
it was
head's
real.
not big enough.
It was real. It was an interesting process because I'm writing it with Brian Bendis, and I'm contributing some art on it with Alex Malik, with the majority of the art's by Bill Sienkiewicz and Klaus Janson. So it's all guys who've done different eras of the Daredevil story, all working together on it. And every person on it, this is like Daredevil's close to their heart, and they're doing this is a canon Daredevil story to them. But the difference is it takes place sort of ambiguously 10 years or so into the future of Marvel. So it really gave us a fascinating opportunity to consider taking where everything is today and where things have been in the past, where a lot of these characters will be 10 years from now, and so how to design a world, how to design a Marvel universe, the environment, New York City, the characters, where might they be? Just sort of as an offside, building this character of the environment into the story. That was a really fun thing to consider. That was a blast. Like discussing that with Brian. Like Brandon would say, about how he would sort of like say, these guys have been through hell and this has happened. We would have those kind of discussions. Who's dead, who's alive, who's divorced, what's happened, how are they changed, what has taken their, if they've continued going in the cycle that they have been, what kind of toll does that take, on them, and what people were forced to sort of change their role or get out of the business or do different things. That was a blast to do that. So much, and it was amazing to be able to write the Punisher, where the Punisher was, and all of these odd characters throughout the Daredevil mythos and legacy from when we were first reading it with Miller, Jansen, and Miller Sienkiewicz, when Brian and I were reading that in the 80s. So it was just incredible to be able to discuss that with all of those artists and work on it that way. And we loved the project so much that way that people had been asking, like, even after it ended, they would love to see like a follow-up or where these characters would go after that. So we're really talking about doing a follow-up to it that maybe
we love writing the Punisher, so maybe focusing on like the Punisher, but this one, like the old man one, and then having like, but still having everyone else in the story have cameos and make an appearance, like Elektra, Soccer Mom, and all these other characters wherever that in the story, and other Marvel characters that haven't been in here will still make like a cameo, so we'll get to see what happened and what became of them.
As a really quick follow-up, are Kitty Pryde and Peter Parker married?
That was funny. I said I was at Brian's house actually. I was at Brian's house. He was sitting at his desk typing Ultron or whatever was going on at the moment. I was sitting at his couch writing a script of this, and I was like, Brian, there's going to be some flowers from Peter Parker, and should it be Mary Jane or is he with someone else right now? And he goes, oh yeah, I had Peter Parker and Kitty Pryde, meet up in the Ultimate Universe, and people really got a kick out of that. Just put Peter and Kitty on the note. Don't make people ask questions. And I was like, oh, it's great. So things like that, just little tiny, yeah.
Animated series Bane.
Wow.
Getting scared there for a second.
And he's a 13-year-old girl.
I've been reading Marvel for a long time, and I know Age of Ultron was like this whole process from like Volume 3, I believe, of the Avengers and New Avengers.
Oh yeah.
And how you guys just like did all this. How did you feel about the ending? Because it seemed a little anticlimactic for some reviewers.
Yeah.
And also, like, how do you feel about Marvel events in general? Because like Fear itself wasn't as it wasn't as great as others. And just that whole process.
Yeah. For me in particular with Age of Ultron, the biggest complaints that I've heard about it were, where's Ultron? Which was pretty much, I talked to Brian about that, and there's an answer. And then the ending, because they felt like, it was fairly anticlimactic. They basically, just the characters beat him because, there was a failsafe built in. I hope I'm not spoiling too much, but everything's spoiled at this point. It's been out for a couple months, you guys. So anyway, but in the very beginning, I talked to Brian because I was noticing that. I was getting these scripts. I go, okay, it's called Age of Ultron. Does Ultron show up? Because I see a lot of Avengers and X-Men and stuff like that, but I don't see a lot of Ultron. And he said, that's what the fans, once again, they hate me, then I make them love me, and then they hate me. That is how it came from. He goes, everyone expects there to be the big battle, so I'm going to show immediately after the big battle. And I'm like, well, won't fans really kind of want to see the big battle? And he goes, that's the point. And so it starts out, it's just everyone's on the run, and Ultron's taken over, and the cities are in ruins, and heroes are decimated, and they're struggling just to stay alive and find maybe a little bit of support from one another. And what it quickly becomes is, it's almost in a way, I think he was kind of doing something with the Survivor's Tale, which is, popular stuff like, say like The Walking Dead and stuff like that, where there's these ideas that there's this force out there and everyone has to band together and work together even though they have different ideologies. And that's where it actually got very interesting is, there was the sort of idealistic ideology, which is, let's go and fight Ultron and take the battle to him. And then there was other people going, well, let's assassinate a hero so that this will never happen in the first place. And there was very different ideologies at play there and how to sort of handle the situation, just like in those type of things. Yeah, the ending, the thing is, the ending really wasn't the ending because it will be continuing on. One of the things I was talking about and what I thought was interesting is, Brian's basically said it, and it's starting to kind of become events, is that the timeline, if you read Marvel Comics, they love to time travel. But even back in the 60s, Dr. Doom had a time machine, Reed Richards had a time machine, everybody has a time machine. They just go anywhere they want, any past, And it's used a lot with the storylines, because what's nice is you can show cause and effect at the same time. You can go to the future and see what has resulted, or have the future come to you and show you what has resulted. Like Bishop is a character from the future, things like that. Phoenix, her daughter, I'm sorry.
Rachel.
Rachel, thank you. Rachel. And coming back, and those are all major characters in the Marvel Universe. And so what he was telling me is, he goes, at what point does time break? if you think about it, because you keep running over the same stretch of highway a million times. Eventually, you start getting potholes, and things start breaking down. It's only meant to go one direction, not back and forth, And so that's what he's really going to explore. That's what's going to be coming up with some of the big X-Men crossover in the fall. Deals with that and some of the ongoing events. So it's interesting in that you would think it does seem kind of oh, so that's how they defeat Ultron, the end, but it isn't really the end. It kind of keeps going forward, and I think you're going to see more of a result of that. But yeah, I think that was very deliberate on Brian's point, because he feels, I think he's done so many of these big crossover events. And I remember that my first job was on a big crossover event, which was Extinction Agenda, or Executioner Song, I think, that's what it was. And, it's a Cable killed Professor Xavier. Not really, and things like that. The event books at Marvel, people love them, and the thing is, I think people have come to expect them, too. Like every year, what's going to be the event book this year? And I think sometimes there's stories that are more influential, and I think other times there's things that are more maybe character-driven, not so much holding the whole universe and stuff. I thought Fear itself was really interesting character-driven story, but it really didn't have a huge effect on the Marvel Universe, I agree. But this one actually seems to have more of an effect lingering past some of those storylines. So, interesting.
I'm sorry we're out of time,
Oh.
but I would like to thank all of these guys and thank all you guys out there. Run by these tables and say hi to these guys and ask some more questions in.
Yeah, Sapphire tables, we can talk to you there too.
Hi, it's Tyro Man. I'm at Boston Comic Con, and I'm talking with Arthur Suydam, the Zombie King. How you doing?
Good. Greetings from Boston.
Oh, cool. So you and Kirkman got the whole zombie craze going, right?
He was my partner on Marvel Zombies, along with Sean, and after that I did Raise the Dead and 20 other zombie projects. And I'm working on The Walking Dead now, and so yeah. So now zombies are like oatmeal. They're in every household.
How did you guys come up with this whole zombie idea initially?
I think how that got started. Well, for me it started with Ralph Macchio at Marvel decided he wanted to put Kirkman and I together to work on a zombie project. It was called Marvel Zombies. What I'm told from Marvel is that this broke trade paperback sales records for them, and that's what really broke zombies and made it really popular. Then after that, Plants vs. Zombies became very popular, and then The Walking Dead after that got signed to AMC, and now here we are.
Who do you like drawing as a zombie? Like, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite character, or?
Well, my thing is my favorite characters. I like to take familiar pop iconic images and reinvent them in a zombie universe, in a zombie world, figure out a new angle on them, and then paint them. I'm actually classically trained. My schooling, I went to a school that was a atelier recreation of the atelier school of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Raphael. And I grew up watching horror films and reading comic books, so you put all that together, and this is what you get.
So do you have a favorite horror film that?
My favorite horror film? Oh, yeah. What is my favorite horror film? Dude, geez, I don't know. Maybe Return of the... I think Alien is my favorite horror film, yeah. The first one, Alien, yeah. That's my favorite horror film.
And how did you get started in doing art? Like, did you go to school?
Well, I had seen the... I got burned really bad when I was a little kid, when I was 5 years old. And I was in a hospital for a year. And so as a traditional, when you're laid up in a hospital, they bring you flowers and magazines. And so they brought me, flowers and comic books. I started reading comics, and I really fell in love with comics. And when I got out of the hospital, as soon as my hands started to heal up, I started drawing them. And then I stuck to it. Somewhere along the line, I had seen the anatomical studies of Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, and I really love those drawings. And so it set a goal for me, helped me set a goal for myself actually, that I wanted to learn how to draw like that, have that quality of knowledge of anatomy and the human figure, and be able to take that and use it in comic books because I love comic books. So I mean, everything they did was all religious content, and I wanted to take that same quality of drawing skill and painting skills and do it in comics. And so basically in the late 70s, I was the first artist to start doing painted comic works in the United States. So I started to work for Heavy Metal, and there I was able to do story, comic sequential art that was actually oil painted and watercolor painted. Everything else was on newsprint and kind of machine colored. So Richard Corbett and I were the first two guys to actually to introduce painted work to comics.
Now you're telling me a little bit about your family history, like going back.
Yeah, what would you like to know? You want me to tell you a little bit? Okay, well, yeah, I mean, the Suydam family goes all the way back to pre-United States. It goes back to the 16th century when this was just North America, and there were settlers coming over from different countries. My family comes from Holland. They came here and they fought the Indian Wars on the Hudson River, opened up a trading post. That trading post eventually ended up becoming New Amsterdam, and then New Amsterdam actually ended up becoming New York. Now, I had two great uncles, James Suydam and Henry Suydam, who were both Hudson River painters. The Hudson River painters, for those who don't know, was a collection of about a dozen artists from the United States at the advent of the Civil War who were painting landscapes in the Hudson Valley, and they won American fine artist recognition for the first time worldwide. I mean, prior to that, it was thought that there are no good artists in America. All the good artists come from France, from Denmark, from Holland, and from England. And the Hudson Rivers were the first guy to basically break that taboo and bring American artists into the fine art realm of the world, basically, including Russia.
And you said right now you're working on the Walking Dead comic. So how is that going?
Walking Dead stuff right now. Yeah, I just finished a cover here. That one right there. And so that's what I'm working on now. I've got my own series. I'm a writer as well, comic creator and a writer. So I'm writing my own series, drawing the interiors. What am I working on? I'm working on a big Tarzan project right now. What else? I'm usually working on about 4 things at one time. Oh, I'm working on, I forgot, Army of Darkness. I'm doing 3 covers for them right now. I was working on the train on the way over here.
Now, what is the series that you're writing and drawing on? What's that series?
Yeah, it's called Skin Deep. It's a zombie series, and it precedes all the zombie stuff. I started on it about 10 years ago. And I got so busy with doing all the covers that it's been hard for me to take breaks and then get back to it and finish it up. Also, I have 3 other books coming out that I wrote that I'm also doing the interiors to. One is called The Adventures of Charlie and Flytrap, the complete Charlie and Flytrap. That's about 200 pages that I wrote and I did all the interiors to. There's another one called Mudwogs I wrote. That's all watercolor work, hand-painted watercolor work. That's going to be about 250 pages. That should be coming out this year. And what's the third one? And I'm working on the third one. I can't say what it is yet because it's still in the progress. Still in the works. Yeah. Still in hush mode. Yeah.
Okay. So how's the con been going for you? Pretty good? Or?
Oh, it's been great. You know, we were kind of a lot of us were worried that because it's in a new location because of the problem they had with the Boston Marathon. That geez, will people show up? Will the fans know? And will they show? You know, to this new location. And man, I was mobbed all day long. So now it's dinner, so everybody's going home. It's going to close in 15 minutes. So, but it's been great, and I love coming. This is one of the shows that I really look forward to coming to every year.
Do you go to a lot of conventions around the area?
Every week I'm out of show, yeah. And this is one of the good ones. I really like the show. The guy Jim who runs the show, he's great to work with, a nice fella, and he understands. I mean, he loves artwork. And I think that's the difference. The difference is that he understands artists. And the show is all about art. It's all about talent. Whereas some of the other shows are more commercial venues. It's about commercials and selling landfill and that kind of stuff. Here, really, the focus is on the talent, and that's works for me.
Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate you talking to us.
Meet you. Tyro man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, a song about never saying never and never being told what you can or cannot do. This is one of us. Before I got to fighting, or when fighting got to me, I looked to find examples on the field of chivalry, and I saw mighty arms, much stronger than my arms could ever be. So I thought perhaps that field was not for me. But still I stayed and watched the fighting till one figure stood apart, in armor newly fashioned and a helm more pot than art. But each blow is thrown with honor and the lightness of the heart. So I took that step which soon became a start. 'Cause she was not the biggest fighter, nor one to raise a fuss, but I remember being proud that she was one of us. And we might never stand together in a shield wall side by side. Because of her I lift my sword with pride. She was ladylike and lively, not the type you would expect, with a braver heart than many and a slot shot to respect. And I guess she'd once decided this was where she'd like to be, and I thought if she could do it, why not?